So many moms feel stuck and isolated, like they've got to keep it all together and can't say how hard it really is. On Let's Get Real, we talk about the real stuff, motherhood, mental health, and everything in between, so you don't feel like you have to carry it alone anymore. Because in order to heal, we have to get real. If you're feeling overwhelmed, grab the Overwhelmed Mom's Guide. It's totally free and made to help you feel like yourself again. The link is in the show notes. Let's jump in. Motherhood rarely goes as planned, but what happens when your journey looks nothing like the picture you imagined? My guest today, Michelle Choairy, knows that road well. From navigating grief and resilience to raising a son with a rare genetic disorder, Michelle has learned how to find light, humor, and even healing in the hardest moments. Michelle is a mom, advocate, and founder of Collective Wisdom for Complex Kids. She has spent the past decade navigating her son's rare genetic disorder and developmental challenges, learning what it takes to push through confusion, advocate fiercely, and find clarity for her family. Today, she's passionate about helping other moms feel less alone, supported, and empowered on their journeys. Michelle, thank you so much for being here today. I am really excited to get to explore this topic of motherhood, just around this concept of raising complex kids and identity shifts that happen in motherhood, among other things. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jenna. This is so exciting. We were talking a little bit before, and really, I'm truly grateful to be able to be talking to everybody about the complex kids that we have.
Yes. Well, thank you. Can you start by painting a picture of what those early years were like for you, stepping into motherhood, and how that identity shift surprised you compared to what you might have expected?
So, motherhood, when you find out you're pregnant, right? You have this picture, you have this view, you kind of think, okay, my life is going to look like this because I'm going to have a kid, I'm married, or, and I'm going to have this child and he's going to do these things and this is how it's going to go. And, when my son, he came early, he came at 32 weeks. He was a little 3-pound baby. And NICU happened. So from the beginning, things didn't look the way that they're actually expected to look like, right? Mm-hmm. And so those things kind of started happening. And then we brought him home, and then you could tell that he was fussy, and then he didn't want to eat. And then all these things happen. And motherhood is like you adjust. You have to adjust your life to your child, right? As they are adjusting, you are adjusting along with them. And I think that during the early years, I was on survival mode. Mm-hmm. I just need to survive this because at some point this is going to get better and easier, right? At some point, something is there's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And when you don't see that light, then you start what I called, and I didn't realize what I was going through, but it was grieving, that grieving process. And you don't want to believe that things are happening, that your life is different. You don't want to believe that people don't really want to be around your child because they're screaming and all of those things. And so you have to go through that grief to come out on the other side of this, and how to find the light. Light was one way, and then it's actually a different light that you're going to be looking at in the future.
I am so glad you brought this up because I feel like what you just shared is very insightful and invaluable, because it is true, like out the gate in motherhood, it is survival mode. I mean, we are now suddenly, as soon as the baby's out of the womb, it is round the clock, every 2 hours that you're feeding the baby. It's all encompassing. But then what can happen is when you have other aspects that contribute to the complexities of this, where you find like there isn't an end in sight here, because there may be longer term dynamics and circumstances that I'm going to have to learn to navigate. So we can easily get stuck in survival mode, and that where that becomes a way of life. And we don't realize, I feel like what is not talked about enough is the need to grieve and how grieving is the very thing that will move us out of survival mode, out of like what you're talking about, that denial part, right? Part of the grieving process. That's the denial of like, maybe it will get better. Maybe like, and it's just like, no, the way out is through grief, which hurts. Like it is so painful. However, that is the pathway forward to be able to get to that place of accepting what is and the reality of where you're at, of like what your child's going through, of motherhood and how it looks different than what you hoped. So I'm really glad you were able to speak to that.
One thing that's very interesting is that you're not the only one that goes through this. I think that your whole it's your husband, it's the family, it's the grandparents, it's the uncles and the aunts, just to trying to see like, okay, who is this child and why, how does this work? Right. And so they also need to go through that process. They also need to do that. And so, it's an important thing with the kids, also brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, grandparents. Everybody goes through the grieving process.
I actually didn't really think about more people it does entail. Like how many more people need to grieve that as well. And yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up. One of the things that I think about, I know for my own experience in motherhood, and then from talking to friends and so many other people, it's this, the comparison trap, just to kind of, as an overview of like, okay, what is motherhood quote unquote supposed to look like, And when you're in these situations that have changed and it's just different than what you thought, right? How have you navigated that comparison trap where it's like, okay, getting to that place of being able to embrace more of your own motherhood journey looking different than some other moms? And everybody's is going to look different to an extent, but it can look more than others.
Mm-hmm. So there's always going to be the comparison. There's always going to be what you are and what the other families they are. So the parents who are going out to eat at a restaurant and they can sit there and their children can sit in a spot and you can all sit and eat together. That is by itself right there in the beginning. I love telling stories, Jenna. So if you don't mind, I like to tell stories. So we were always, my husband's family. So my family's from Brazil. My husband's family is from Las Vegas. And that, like, going out is what we do. Like, that is what, we get together, let's go to dinner. And then there's 20 of us and we go to a restaurant, we sit down and we eat. And so, you go, and for years I would sit down and eat and hurry it up so I could go as my husband had my child, then we could swap. So my husband could come and sit down, and then I would be with my boy outside because he just could not sit down, and he was crying, and it was the fussy and all of that. And we just couldn't do it. And then we would look at the other families where, their babies are just sitting in their laps and just happy, and we're like, why don't we have that? And then what happens is that happens, you pull yourself away and you're like, I don't want to go anymore because I don't like the situation. So you start isolating yourself. You start pulling yourself back because I don't want to be that family who can't sit down to eat together. And so, you know what? I'll just stay home with the baby. You go with your family. Or, we have to find somebody to stay with him so we can go with the family. And that is the reality of what is happening in your life. And so I think that I'm leading here into isolation, right? We have a complex kiddo that like can't sit at a restaurant, then you isolate yourself. Or one thing that I think that a lot of parents will also see is that you start getting less and less invitations for, hey, come over. Or, because my son used to come in and break all the toys or run around and scream. And so it's hard. It's hard for people to really understand. And unless you understand and you have one of your own, you don't fully understand.
Mm-hmm. That is, yeah, such a good point. And I'm just thinking of highlighting that isolation factor, because hearing this story, it makes sense how easily that would happen. So how did you navigate moving through this, like being able to work through the grief, but then now it's like, hey, how do we navigate being able to not like feed the isolation, or like how did you kind of break out of that if you were in it?
Very badly, Jenna, very badly. It was not fun for many years. It wasn't fun. And to be honest, we still go through some of this. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to kind of come out the top of the water,
Yes.
But it's messy. Like you think that you're doing good and then you're not doing so good. And then you go and you do better and then you're not doing so good. And then, and it's just kind of how it goes. And I think that one of the things of moms that have complex kids, or parents in general, is that we're resilient. We have to be.
Yeah.
We have to be resilient because, it's one thing after another. I promise you. And so when you think that you got over something, then you really didn't, and something else is coming.
Yes.
And so resilience is something that we have to work on. Patience is another thing that we need to work on. And those are the things that you learn. And that is how you get out of it, right? That's how you navigate this life. That's how you, one of the things that I always tell the parents is, you gotta look at the small wins. And until you can see the small wins happening and actually celebrate those small wins, you are going to be stuck in that darkness. You're going to be stuck in that comparison mode, and you can't, because if you stay there, when you're not well, your child's not well. So It's a domino effect that's going to start happening. So
wow.
Watching for the small wins.
The small wins, that is, really so important. I just thinking how easy it is to not see those, how easy it would be. Like it would think it's in those situations where it's like, feels so big, being able to practice and be like, I'm going to train my mind to look for the small aspects of progress, because that's what's going to help fuel me and see like the progress beyond, like, in the midst of these big, like where it can feel like big setbacks, but it's like, hey, in the midst of big setbacks, there are areas of progress. There's wins that I can count, and how huge that would be. And I really love what you said about the middle, because it's the messy middle. And I think too often it's easy to kind of perfectionist it, or be like, I need to figure out every single possible scenario before I can step out and try something, instead of being like, I'm going to just try this. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to try something different the next time. Yeah.
There's a story, and like I said, I like to tell stories, Jenna. So
please do. I will do that. Yes.
So one day, we decided we're going to take our dog and we're going to go hiking. And I'll be honest with you, I think that every time we went hiking, we probably wouldn't even get out of the car, or we would get out and it would be like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we had to go back into the car because either the kids were fighting or something would happen, right? So one day we're like, okay, we're going to go hiking. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me. I looked back because I was in the front. I looked back and I'm like, I need to video this. We are hiking for the first time. And this was just like, what, like a year and a half ago. My son's 11, my daughter's 8. And it just happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're doing this. And you have to understand how big that is for a family to say, okay, we're going to go hiking. And we're talking. There were no meltdowns. Our dog Ruby was being great. Drake was talking to his dad. Ria was with me. And it's like, wow, we're doing this. And those are the small wins that you need to keep looking for.
Yes.
You know, like, come on. Everybody goes hiking, right? No, they don't. No, they don't. And this is us. We did it. We did it for the first time. And we came home and we celebrated and, you know, and that's what you have to do because those are the small things that are going to get you through every day.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like creating the rhythm of celebration is hugely important. And it's almost like a lifeline that you need to grab onto. It's like, this has to be a regular rhythm every day. And creating that because it's too heavy. Like life is very hard. And then when we add these other aspects to it, it's too heavy to carry, especially when we feel like we're the ones as moms, when, you know, tend to feel like we're carrying this massive boulder on our own. And so getting to create that regular rhythm of celebration, it sounds like it's just a lifeline and is so hugely important to do. And I love that story that you shared of being like, no, this is the first time and it's significant and it is so worth documenting and celebrating because that is huge. Something you had said a little bit ago of like why this is so important, especially for moms, right? To acknowledge and to celebrate and count those small wins. Because if mom isn't doing well, it affects everybody else. So can you expand on that a little bit more of what you've seen for yourself or other women when it'd be very hard to take care of yourself when you are doing everything to take care of your child?
You forget about yourself. I will tell you, I forgot about myself for years and years and years. There were two things that I never stopped doing because it was the one thing is getting my hair done because I needed to get my gray taken care of and getting my nails done. Those are the only two things that I actually could still continue to do, but it wasn't enough because, it just wasn't enough.
Right.
I really, for me, and I think that I can tell you that it would probably be for the majority of the mothers out there that have these, the complex kiddos, is that we need to have somebody to talk to, someone who understands. I think that there were two things that happened. And these were the two things that I tell moms that I talk to, the moms that I help right now with my program is, so when you're taking care of yourself, you need to have a friend that understands what it is that you're going through. So this is going to be another mom of a complex kid. Okay, because if this person doesn't understand, it is I can talk to my sisters as much as I want to. They don't get it. They can only imagine what it's going to be like.
And you don't want to have to explain. It's like, I just need someone who gets it. I don't have to explain. I can just share what happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to find a friend and usually, for me, I have a group of moms that we get together. And when they were young, I'll tell you really quick. When they were young, we used to come to my house and we would sit outside on the table and we would drink our wine. And the kids would be running around, and then you knew that one's going to melt down. So the mom would get up, go there, help, and then we'd come back and continue the conversation. 2 seconds later was somebody else's kid that would be melting down, screaming, doing whatever. So then that mom would get up and, there's no judgment because we knew what it was like.
Yes.
We knew that they were going to come back, and it's okay, here we go. Let's continue. So that is very important, finding somebody who is there with you. And then the other thing, I had to look for help, like
support.
Had to look for support. And I found a psychologist, and I mean, it took me, I still see her like to this day, but it was like somebody who can help you through that grief, through the challenges of your life. How do you make this mental change? How do you look at the wins? Because it's really hard to look for that, right? It's hard to look at the light when you're in the darkness. And so I feel like I needed professional help at the time. And so I went and I looked for that. But, there are certain things, Jenna, that you can do. They're very easy to do. And when you are losing yourself, sometimes like I just sit in my car and just taking 5 deep breaths. Sometimes like it calms all that anxiety, all that need to fix the perfectionism that's coming out. Sometimes breathing is all you kind of need, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really practical and very helpful, because what you were saying with like, okay, like I could get my hair done, I could get my nails done, but it's like that happens every few weeks. Like that's not a regular rhythm. Where kind of what I just keep thinking about is like there's a lot more of these regular daily rhythms that we need to implement, or like multiple times a week. And it's kind of more of these invisible needs that you can't necessarily see like that, right? Like that's like, okay, I can see that I got my hair done, I can see I got my nails done, but these invisible needs that really are soul deep, and they help us in the way that we're wired as humans. So getting to connect, and I don't know, I'm kind of seeing these dots connect more as you're sharing this of like, that's one of the ways out of isolation. It's okay. One of the big ways out, it's finding those other moms who just get it. You don't have to explain. There's a certain level of like patience and non-judgment and being like, I can breathe. And even when the meltdown happens, or what, like the freak out, and I have to like go and tend to this child, like I don't have to apologize. I don't have to do any of that. Like there's this grace and a safe space to land. And it's just like, that is so needed, especially in these seasons and situations where you're like, I just need space and permission to be a human, and people who get me, and like the whole connection piece, which I think is it can be hard and challenging to overcome, isolation to get there. So I'm
it's
really
hard.
glad. Yeah. Really challenging.
But I mean, it's doable though. And that's the thing. Like when, so the moms that I hang out with, I met them when Drake was in preschool. They've been hanging out since Drake was 3 years old, because that's when they go into the school district. Before that, there's a couple of things that I think that is important to mention is that, if your child is under 3, they are taken care of by the state. And so they have different kinds it's called an early intervention program. So just depending on which state you're in. And so they come to your house. So that right there is isolating, right? Because you're isolated. But once they turn 3, they go to a school district. And that is where you're going to be able to find people and parents that are going through the same things that you are. But I have to share also is that when they're that young, for me, I was still comparing. I still had to compare, because that's what we do. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Like
it's natural.
So it's natural. And so I would compare, my son, he's doing this. Oh, he can do this. Oh, he can do that. Yeah, and then you learn that, yes, they can do this, but they're also doing other things. The other kids are also doing things. And then it starts, you really have to learn that you can't compare as much. And then you have to celebrate their wins also. So you can find that light because your child's also going to have some wins and they are going to celebrate with you. And then you can, grow together. And you have that, it's kind of I think that it's still kind of part of the process of the grieving process there. I think it's kind of part of all of that because, you still want to do it, but then you learn, you're like, no, this can't continue to compare. This is how it's going to be. And we're friends and we're going to be happy for you, for her, for whoever is on our group or not even in the group, anybody. So
yes, anybody. Yeah. And how that can show up like this, the grieving process can show up in layers where it can show up. It's not like it's a one and done, basically, is what I'm trying to say. It's not like, okay, let me just grieve this in the next week or month or 6 months. Like, no, there's other aspects to grief of like, as they get older and as you start saying, okay, there's these new limitations or things that I was hoping and desiring I wasn't even aware of. And now I'm seeing this come to the surface and I need to grieve these things again. And it just sounds like because I'm curious what you would say like has really helped you break out of that. Like, okay, as you've gone through and break out of the comparison at these different stages, has it been primarily grief that you think has helped, or what do you think?
About 2 years ago, I decided that I was going to help moms. And so I do medical sales. My day job, this is what I do. I work with orthopedic surgeons. I work for a really big orthopedic company called Stryker. And I'm in the operating room a lot. So for people who don't know what I do is like, if you break your ankle, I sell the plates and the screws and things that go inside your body. It's a very high demanding job, right? But I decided that was not the only thing in my life because throughout the time, I started looking at this about 2 years ago. And during the time, even because I worked in the medical field, I think people would feel comfortable coming to me and asking me questions about the medical issues that they're having with their children. And I know a lot of physicians, I know a lot of doctors. And so kind of know how to speak their lingo a little bit. And so people would come, like my friends would come and be like, okay, I need to find a developmental pediatrician. Okay, I have the best one for you because that's who we went to. But if you live here, and these are just things that came natural to me. Yeah. People would be drawn to me that way. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to help moms because I am good at this and I can do this. I have the means to do this. So about 2 years ago, I decided to do this. I'm still working. I still have my full-time job. I still in the operating room all day long. But now it's like I get those moms who are struggling like I did. And we build a way for them to thrive. So I teach them is actually thrive. So the T is you develop a team around your child. These are things to survive this complex kiddos. So that is how I got out of the grief. So team, I had a team around my child, a medical team. So I had a developmental pediatrician. I had a great speech therapist, had great, occupational therapist. And so I built this medical team around my child who was there 100% to make him better, to give him what he needed. Then the H is yes. Sorry.
I'm the same way.
So the H was the help systems that we talked about. So part of it is how to navigate insurance companies, how to navigate the educational programs that you have, how to navigate the state-funded programs. How do you get help? How do you get respite care through the state? All of those things we talk about because you need those. You need to know how to use them in the correct way. Then the I is what we kind of touched on, which is the integration. It's taking care of yourself. If you're not well, your child's not going to be well. Oh, I skipped that R. R, relationships. I can't spell this morning. Sorry.
No, I'm following you. This is great.
R are the relationships, and it's kind of what we talked about. Your husband, the family, the grandparents, the aunts and uncles. You have to bring them on, and you have to teach them about what's happening. You have to explain, here's what's happening. This is what, do you want to help me? This is what help looks like.
That's powerful.
Right? This is what, if you want to help me, this is what it looks like. So we determine that around the relationships. The I, like I said, it's the integration. You got to take care of yourself. V is what we already talked about, which is the small wins, celebrating all the time. And then the E is expect the miracle, because once you do all these things, the miracle comes, because you're going to look at it and you're going to go, I can breathe because I have all of this in place.
Thanks for listening to part 1 of Let's Get Real. If you've been feeling stretched thin, stuck in survival mode, or like you've lost yourself in motherhood, I made something just for you. It's called the Overwhelmed Mom's Guide, and it's totally free. Inside, I walk you through simple steps to help you reconnect with who you are, find a bit more breathing room in your day, and start to feel like you again. You can grab it now. Just click the link in the show notes. You don't have to keep doing this alone. Let's take the next step together.